Oh, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to Omega Conversations. I'm Skip Backus. I'm CEO here at Omega, and I've been watching people come into the chat, and it's always so much fun to watch where you're all coming from and how far we can reach. I'm actually broadcasting live today from the Omega campus in Rhinebeck, New York, and in the past we've had thousands of people join these conversations from over 52 different countries. Today, we're privileged to be having a conversation with Winona LaDuke. I hope later to be able to get some questions into the conversation. So if you want to put some things in the chat, feel free to do that, and we'll see how the conversation goes over time. Winona is a Native American climate activist and a member of the Ojibwe Nation of Northern Minnesota. She is the twice Green Party candidate for vice president and author of multiple books on environment and human rights. Her work spans over 30 years working in policy and community development, including the historic Standing Rock pipeline protest. She has a new book that's shortly to be released, titled To Be a Water Protector, The Rise of the Windigo Slayers. She has presented many times here at Omega and an honored faculty. And so without further ado, hello, Winona.
Hello, how are you, Skip? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. There you go. It's so great to see you again.
Yes, very honored to be here with you. A long time I've been visiting with you at Omega. I'm very grateful to the space that you offer, in the community. So happy to be here in this Zoom world with you.
Well, thank you for that. I always try to settle myself down a little bit and get a little grounded before I do these conversations. But I think I've given up today because, we're like 4 days out from probably the most important election of a lifetime, and also sitting here in COVID virus. And so challenging times for sure. And so before, we dive into several topics, I'd just like to hear, how are you and what's happening in Winona world?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. So I'm up here on the banks of the Mississippi River, where we're water protectors, and it looks as if Enbridge is going to try to push ahead with the last tar sands pipeline, kind of like, sorry about that, like the last Avatar or something, or the last dinosaur. I mean, it's like we're done. We're at the end of the fossil fuel era, and so I'm here on our beautiful land, going to have water ceremonies today to protect our water, but I'm doing quite well. When the COVID virus hit, I was up in my community, and as you know, I used to fly. Did you used to fly too, Skip?
It seems like in another lifetime.
Yeah, it was like, and so I talk to people in my community, and I start conversations. Sometimes they ask me about things in the world. I was like, back when I used to fly, I remember, but like everybody else, stay home. And I went into the woods. For us, the Ojibwe New Year really starts in March when the sugaring starts, maple syrup, which is like your area too. And that's one of our best and strongest medicines. And so, as things worsened in the health conditions, I went into the woods and we made our maple syrup, our maple sugar, and made our prayers and started our Ojibwe New Year. And I have quarantined basically with 8 to 10, depending on the numbers, 14-year-olds.
Oh.
So I'm here farming on my farm. When I'm not here on the pipeline project, farming. Raise a lot of really cool vegetables. We'll talk a little bit about those later, but I farm more than I ever farmed. And I've been staying away from town, and interesting enough, where we live is right next to the Amish. And so I find it really interesting because the Anishinaabe and the Amish are all hanging out, basically rebuilding a local economy that we knew happened, but, we all quarantined together, us and the Amish. And so we have Amish neighbors, we shop with them, we share horses with them. And, really interesting time, but we're praying like everybody is for the best, and knowing that, Erin Dottie Roy talks about this time and she calls pandemic as portal, right? Yeah. And, in this moment in time, our world has changed, and this is our opportunity for change, and so we're taking it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I have found is that you start to look more at where you are as opposed to getting on the plane to go somewhere else, and you start to really understand your own place and how you relate in that, and see some things that you've been missing because there's been too much of out there and not enough right here in terms of how we live.
It's interesting because 40 years ago when I moved back to the reservation, I ran the survival school for the tribe, which is a result of the American Indian movement's work to redo history, teach Indigenous students ourselves. And here I am running a survival school at 61. And I got a residential school, I feel like, and I got 8 kids in all the time. And I work with about 20 kids, and we grew more food than we ever grew in our lives. I think everybody did, because we were home, and they say that seed sales just like quadrupled.
Yeah.
And for us, we grew huge crops of corn, beans, squash, potatoes, 17 varieties of potatoes, and hemp. Well, all kind of other stuff, but hemp. So very, very tobacco and hemp. So very proud of our farming activities. That's what I've been doing. It's mostly growing a local food economy and feeding my people. And most of our work is post-petroleum. You could look on our website, but we farm with horses. And so that's been a very big, big part of our work. And we're learning that. But hanging out with the Amish has helped us quite a bit in our horse work. Getting a good inspiration and bringing our problems to them.
Yeah. It's, there's a lot of talk about comparing these days with during World War II and the victory gardens and everybody having a garden. I actually started my first garden this year, and I have a lot to learn. And
plants can teach you, but you really got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Really got to pay attention. They're like children, but they can teach you, So I grow these corn varieties, and I grow this one hominy, a hominy corn is, or pasoli. Yeah. I grew that, and I grew this white corn that was an Oneida, and this year it didn't come in so good. I knew that.
Yeah.
So I grew a short season variety for our family that came in great. So
Well,
you got to pay attention. You better pay attention. But that's, I think that I really like what Arundhati Roy said, when she talks about pandemic as portal. And she said, in the history of the world, pandemics have always caused us societies to change. That's the way it is. This one moved more rapidly because pandemics usually move through war or for trade. And, so the bubonic plague took a little while, Spanish, shorter time, this one quick because of the trade with China. But, and she says that these pandemics cause us to change. And that is true, because none of us, we're doing stuff we would have never done.
Right. And
we had to slow our stuff down. The sea turtles are coming back. There's like the hole in the ozone is better. We're 10% cut in fossil fuels. And, we were forced to do this. And now is really the time, it has changed. And the question she asks, she calls pandemic as portal. And she says, what do you want to bring through there? You want to bring your avarice and your hatred, your dirty skies, your data banks, your filthy rivers, or you want to walk through clean? I say walk through clean. Let's make the new green revolution. Let's make the new world, because it's already being made. So let's do it.
Absolutely. I mean, many times I'll talk to people about, not ignoring the suffering and the pain and the loss that's occurred with the COVID virus, but there is absolutely an opportunity in this to reimagine ourselves and how we live together and, actually inhabit the planet. So it's going to be interesting to see as we come out of this, how we can really bring some of that new thinking to bear around the environment and the economy and our relationships. And I really feel that's where the hope lives right now, is that we've been given this opportunity, and there's hope in that. And I really hope that we hold on to that and pay attention to that opportunity and keep the awareness of the opportunity. I want to go to your new book for a minute that should be coming out shortly, I understand, To Be a Water Protector, the rise of the Windigo slayers, and say that, I finished the book just last night. Luckily I got a galley copy from your assistant, and amazing, timely and totally on point, but also exhausting. And what I found exhausting about it was just the body of your work, just what you've been, attending to for such a long period of time and across, whether it be pipelines, dams, water pollution, human rights, just the list of things that goes through the book. And so first, I really want to just honor the life energy that you've given to the causes. And what I'd like to start with is if you can just speak a little bit to what you mean by water protector and Windigo slayers.
So it's Windigos.
Windigo.
Right.
Thank you.
It's okay. You'll work on your Ojibwe. That's part of your decolonization process.
I'll get some lessons from you.
Right. So Windigos is, in Ojibwe stories, a Windigo is a cannibal that lives in the North Country and consumes villages and just, destroys things. And so our people have this long history of these Windigos who would come and laid to waste, and then brave and courageous people would stand up and fight the Windigos. And a lot of times it was like a little girl or somebody like they didn't know. It wasn't always your strongest warrior. But so I always remind my people and myself, our people have a long history of killing Windigos, But I refer to it as Windigo economics. I think I'm an economist by training, and that's what the economics of capitalism is you keep consuming like a Windigo. It's basically a cannibal because you consume your mother. You consume the life upon which gives you life. And so, we've been fighting for years, not just us, but people have been fighting Windigo economics, so, that is just kind of calling it out because we cannot pretend, even the United Nations says that capitalism must die for the planet to survive. I mean, this is not like radical people saying this. This is people saying you can't keep doing that crazy stuff. We're done, And so this is a critique of Windigo economics, the book is. And this is also a tribute to the water protector movement, and I'm a water protector. I've been my whole life, and most of the people here are probably water protectors too, but the movement itself gained its name and in a hail of bullets in Standing Rock, where, we are called water protectors because we said that. And, it's up here in our territory is where the term was first used because, at a certain point, they called me a protester. I said, I'm not a protester, I'm a water protector. Because I'm not protesting, I'm standing for my water. It's a spiritual teaching. I said, this protesting kind of diminishes your status to somebody who's just disgruntled with the system. I'm not disgruntled with the system. I'm going to take care of Mother Earth. That's my job, So that's where that, and so that book is like what I wrote for the past 2 years. That's what I have a book that recently came out called Winona, LaDuke Chronicles. And so that was my last set of writing. And what I write is I write a lot of time for Native papers or for local papers, or I write some essays, but, I'm not a journalist who's writing for major publications all the time, but I those are stories that need to see the light of day. So I profiled these stories of, the Mauna Kea struggle in Hawaii. Why is that? What is going on? Why do those people stand for that mountain? Who wants to put up a telescope? Why aren't they content with what they already see in the world? Good questions to ask. I profiled the battles in northern Canada, the Gitxsan with Wet'suwet'en against a pipeline. A lot of my work, which you see in this book, is actually like I don't view the border as relevant because my Anishinaabe people are on both sides of the border, and so I just go through talk about Canada. And people always want to talk about Trump. Well, you should talk about Justin Trudeau too. Because a lot of my problems start in Canada. Tar sands, that's Canadian. Mining companies, 75% of the world's mining corporations are Canadian. So we need to call out Canada's lack of a plan, total lack of a plan. And we all need to look at the Green New Deal. You know, we all need to look at what a just transition looks like. And so the book is about these battles and the solutions, you know, and one of my favorite pieces you will appreciate is called Turning on a Dime, which was this essay I wrote after I was in Sitka, Alaska. Have you been to Sitka, Skip?
I have not, no.
Well, if you ever get to fly again, you should go to Sitka.
Okay, I got it on my list.
I have a little bucket list of, yeah. But, you know, what I was going to say is that I was in Sitka one day. I was at a writer's workshop and I was looking out there at the beautiful Pacific Ocean, and there was eagles diving because the fish were in, and there was bears walking down, you know, just whales jumping, you know, all kind of magical things, right? You know, and I'm watching this just breathless, sitting there watching, and all of a sudden in the left side, a corner of my eye, I see a ship. And there's fishing boats there. So I'm like, oh, and then I look and it's a cruise ship. It's a cruise ship, Skip. And I'm like, oh, that's going to really mess up my view. You know, so I watch this cruise ship come into the middle of this beautiful panorama, and it comes in and it gets right about here and it stops and it turns 180 degrees and goes back out. I was like, wow, who would have thought that a cruise ship could do a 180-degree turn? But that's really what we got to do. We got to be a cruise ship that makes a big turn, you know, and I saw those guys turn on a dime, but this is our shot. And the way the next world is going to be built, you know, I call myself a doula for the next economy.
Yeah.
You know, some people say they're like, we're going to forge the next economy. We're going to build it. We're pioneers. All that stuff is like not appropriate.
Yeah.
Let's be doulas.
If we can just move out of the...
here. She's getting bored.
Yeah. If we can just move out of the extractive economy, that'll be, you know, amazing, you know, where we have real value for things and it's accounted in the economic system. Whereas now so much of, there's not, real value is not considered. It's more, you know, even when you look at water, and I was just looking at Nestle trying to expand their bottling rights in a couple of places. And, you know, you look at how they account for the value of the water itself. And basically there is no accounting, you know, and so you just extract out these resources. And, you know, we have to take a look at really, you know, coming to a place of understanding the real economics of things. And I'm really looking forward to those conversations as we go forward. And hopefully, you know, coming into a place where at both the local and state and federal government level, that there's more of an openness to the conversations and how we, through the different structures that we hold, we can support that type of an economy moving forward.
Well, so, you know, Skip, y'all been talking about this stuff for decades. I wouldn't have hung out with you if you weren't all cool talking about regenerative agriculture and, you know, enlightened thinking. You know, so what we're talking about is not anything that we haven't been working on.
Right, exactly.
We've been working on this. We've got local economies. You got that Let's economy. I mean, you got all kind of regional, bioregional work, which is underway. The next economy is that. You know, I mean, the fact is that what COVID also taught us is that big isn't best and size matters. It turns out that, you know, big agriculture systems can't transform in crisis. That's why they dump all that milk, killed all those things, right? So, you know, if you want to build resilient systems, you get local and you rebuild regional work, and we're doing it. And now we just need to like nurture it and grow it because it's time.
Yeah, it's a re-understanding of what growth means, and getting off of, you know, the you know, that constant escalator to needing to have more growth, more this, more stuff, you know, and just stepping back and realizing there's a way of looking at and understanding the work that's in front of us and just repairing and building resilience and looking at, you know, that body of work, and relax on that we have to keep accumulating and growing the gross national product and on and on and on, because there's a limit. It's a finite earth that we're working with. And, you know, so I think we need to pay more attention there.
You know, in Anishinaabe-Moan, in our language or in our value system, you know, is this concept, which is Minobamata Ziwan, which means the good life. And that's what we really aspire to. And it doesn't really have anything to do with GDP or how much guns or stuff you have. You know, it has to do with well-being that is spiritual, that is physical, that, you know, that is what it has to do with, and how you relate to the rest of your relatives, whether they have wings or fins or roots or paws. Minopomata. And I think about that because that's like gross national happiness indexing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what they do in, you know, in Bhutan and, you know, Costa Rica's super happy, like doesn't have a military, you know, so to me, it's like this opportunity to rethink, you know, and for all of us, like town is a 4-letter word where I live. It was before, but totally now, because it's a total Republican area. They don't wear masks in these towns, and there's a huge spike up here. Yeah. But you know what is interesting is being in the Amish community, or like friends. I'd say I'm friends with the Amish. You know, we're friends. We talk. We you know, we started talking about how they make decisions. You know, because you and I have had these abstract discussions, and certainly Wendell Berry and others have talked about like how you build an agrarian economy that makes sense. And you know, they make choices on technology. We don't make those choices in this society. We're like, oh, I want the latest iPhone. I need a 5G. Oh yeah, I need that. I need that. Right. We don't need that.
No.
You know,
no,
I mean, how do you, and then if you choose that technology, what change does it make in your relations with others? That's the conversations that these cats have. Yeah. You know, super interesting to have these conversations with them. And I'm buying my milk. You know, I have one big habit aside from caffeine, which is cream. I like cream in my coffee, you know, and I tried all that other stuff, but I really like cream. Keep my curves. Yeah. You know, but
I'm a half and half person. I can't take the full strength cream. But
what I was just going to tell you, so the Amish sell me a quart of cream for $4. Wow. No, $3. $3. You got that?
Yeah.
And I go there and I was like, oh, $4. I got 4. She said, no, 3 is enough. We do fine. And we have enough.
Yeah.
And I thought, who says we have enough?
Yeah, I know.
Who says we have enough?
Yeah, I want to go back to a word that just came out a minute ago, relatives. You know, that, you know, when we think about relatives, you know, you tend to think about your brother, your mother, your uncle, or whatever. But I like the way that you talk about relatives. And I'm just going to tell one quick thing about when I started the garden, I got a load of compost, and I covered the compost with a tarp. And it rained hard that night. And when I went out the next morning, there were all these frog eggs in the puddles on the tarp.
Wow.
And so we took all the eggs and created a place and some buckets and water from the stream on my property, and made a little space for them to be tadpoles and turn into frogs. And now they've all moved on, and a couple of them actually are with me all the time in the garden now. They have their own little place to eat and to swim. I made a little swimming pool in the corner for them. And the reason I'm telling this is that the concept of relatives is more about everything, not just relatives in the sense of your brother or your mother or whatever, but that you are a relative to the frogs. You are, you know, a relative to all animals and all species. And when you feel that, and you are that, and are in the conversation and the place with that, then your behavior changes. You know, by the intuitive instruction that comes from you from that exchange. And I really think, you know, that part of what we suffer from is we walk around in disconnection, and we walk around separate from things, and not even realizing. And so the more that we can learn again to be in relationship, to have relatives, I think the greater our chances to deal with a lot of the issues. And I really liked in the book, and I'm going to forget the woman you quoted in the book, but she was saying that water is alive. Water can hear you. And, you know, on our campus, we've had an eco machine that basically purifies our wastewater with microorganisms and plants. And I tell you, I feel so, you know, lucky to have the relationship that I do to the water, and to the plants, and to the organisms there, and the work that they do for us. And so I really think that, you know, the more that we can learn to truly experience and feel part of the natural, including the natural world in our relationships, the better chance we have of really dealing with our issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think on one hand, what I want to say is that I notice, you know, my area, my neck of the woods, my king, the land to which we belong, is 50% water. You know, got the Great Lakes, 47 lakes and 500 miles participation. And so, you know, the person who had said that quote was Josephine Mandamin. You know, and she's an Anishinaabe woman who passed on the spirit world. She was a water walker. She was the legendary and epic water walker. You know, and all our songs refer to praising the water and being grateful to the water. And you see in a scientific world that Dr. Emoto, you know, had all that work on singing to these crystals, you know, to make them, you know, and you know, singing to water to make it pure. And so I think that like people underestimate our power as spiritual beings. And I know at Omega you talk about that, but that's really this opportunity to summon up our spiritual power and be those beings that heal, you know, that make things beautiful and that bring things to life. And, you know, because you think of things like your garden, you know, I raise these cool old squash and there's 1,600 seeds in every one of those. So you know that plant's all about reproduction. You know, my hemp field, all full of boys and girls, like so many seeds out there. I was like, they all want to have babies out there. You know, my point is that life wants to happen, you know, give it love, you know, and also, you know, our relatives, you know, I think my community suffers from such grief because of the loss of our relatives. You know, you're familiar with like the loss of the buffalo. My community lost our sturgeon, you know, our sturgeon wiped out, our moose almost gone, you know, and those are our relatives too. Now you see Anishinaabe people standing with the wolf to stop their delisting by the Trump administration, because those are our relatives too. You know, I feel very rich in relatives. And, you know, the other thing I just want to say is kind of in a worldwide basis, I think you know this, that Indigenous people live where the wild things are. We live where the wild things are. So we're about 4% of the world's land base, but about 75% of the world's biodiversity. Right. You know, where I live, there's bears and wolves and eagles and moose and there was otters, you know, beavers and frogs and butterflies, you know, because they're there because that's the last places, you know, and so that's why we fight, you know, because that's our job, because to stand up for them. And that's why I'm fighting the Enbridge Line 3. I mean, I'm like sitting out here, I'm 61 years old. Do you think I want a gun to my head? No. You know, but, you know, I'm going to stand for our water because I try to make the system work. And now is the time to summon up your courage, because the other thing, you know, that I know is that their party is over. I mean, the pandemic has just driven into crisis. Like, look at Exxon. They can't even make the top 10 anymore. They got kicked off of the S&P. You know, who's up there? I mean, Bezos might well own the world, the way it's looking, you know. I always just say that Amazon should save the Amazon. I mean, you know, he could do that. He's got enough money to save the Amazon himself, you know, besides sending them all, you know, stuff on Prime. He could do that. But the world has changed and the oil companies are not in charge. It's the tech companies now, you know, and they're all going renewables, you know, so let's just keep pushing. You know, you and I this is an epic time. We never imagined living like this. And you look out there and, you know, I seen things like, how many years do you think Indian people try to get those Columbus statues taken down? Huh? And what about that Washington Redskins? They're gone. All this stuff is gone. The idols are falling. You know, statues are falling, and social movements are surging. And, you know, you got climate crisis, you got health crisis, you got political crisis, and you have social movements. You know, I'm saying keep pushing, team. Let's keep pushing. Make something beautiful.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that the virus has done is shown us how vulnerable we are, and that we do have to pay attention. And this is the opportunity to pay attention and make the necessary change. And we're given some of those key opportunities that you just listed, you know, that there's more of a chance now because there's been a break. You know, there's almost miraculously a stop in momentum, and that we can reach into and take advantage of.
Well, I mean, I think it also points to like that they don't know what they're doing. There was this like mythology created that we got this. We got this. Y'all little people, you just hang there because we got this. They don't got it, you know? You know, and I don't know, like they say different things that this virus came from a military lab in China, probably did, you know, but they said that originally it came from a bat. Like 99% of the coronavirus was the same bat thing, you know? And I think about that, and I think about, you know, how many times we tell people quit messing with Mother Nature. A few,
Right.
you know, a few.
Yeah.
This is not new. This is not newsflash. You know, don't mess around with where the wild things are. You know, and I think about in Ojibwe history, there's a lot of lessons. Even the bat, like little pitiful creatures that no one really thinks about, do epic stuff. Like in our world, the bat untangled the sun from a tree. You know, that's why the bat is like black and burned, is because a bat, was given some gifts, but blinded. You know, that was all from that. You know, so what I say is, like, in our histories, not just ours, but there's these epic histories, particularly Indigenous people, where the relationship between the animal world and the human world is very, like, we're same, you know? And I look at that, and so I think I call this the time of the bat. That's what I call this, the time of the bat. You know, that our people are going to look back and say, remember that time of the bat, man? That was epic. You know, pray for the best, my people, and do your part to change the world, because you got a shot, you know, besides getting out to vote. Plus all your relatives, get your relatives out, drive them to the polls, or make sure they voted ahead, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, you also talk about what you call becoming a good ancestor. And I think partly that's what I'm trying to talk about in terms of how do we shift our awareness and to be able to be, you know, good in this, in the relationship and in with relatives. So you're in the book, you talk about becoming a good ancestor. Could you talk a little bit about, you know, what is that, and how do you become a good ancestor?
Well, you know, first I want to send a greeting. I see my great grandmother's sister, Mary Lyons, is on. You know, and she is such a good inspiration for all of us, you know, intergenerational responsibility represented right there, you know, where we take we take our common relative, we have common relative, Mary and I, and we say, you know, what would you want us to do? Auntie Margaret, Granny Margaret, what should we do? You know, and I think about, like, that, you know, our ancestors are looking upon us now with all of their prayers and all of the teachings, and saying, go forth, my girl, stand strong, remember who you are. That's the instructions we get. And then we have these little ones coming, you know, and these ones that aren't born. And so I want them, you know, when I'm passed on to spirit world, and I want them to say, she was a good ancestor. You know, she did these things for our people. That's how I want to be remembered. You know, and I think we all got that opportunity to do something epic. You know, maybe different kind of things, but, you know, why would you, like, slide and be mediocre? Why would you just be about yourself when you could change the world? You know, so I look to try to, you know, a lot of good role models out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so great that she's joined us. I'm going to look at a couple of questions quick here and see. There's a defined here a question about hemp and really having that. How can people support bringing hemp into the primary product line in different ways?
Right, love to talk about that. You know, so y'all don't need the lecture on hemp. You know, I mean, they say, best way I put it is, I heard it said that 80 years ago, we had a choice between a carbohydrate economy and a hydrocarbon economy. We had a choice and we made the wrong choice. I mean, think about that, carbohydrate economy, almost the same word, you know, hydrocarbon, carbohydrate. But, you know, that carbohydrate economy was hemp. Anything you can do out of plastic, you can do out of hemp. But let's just be honest, we don't want to do a lot of that stuff. We don't want any more single-use bottles. Let's just be done with dumb stuff. You know, move on, wash them glass bottles, you know. I seen Bayer Brewery do that. You know, people are doing that, but, you know, hemp has the potential to transform the materials economy, whether it's from hempcrete. We just had our first hempcrete workshop. You know, concrete is like the single most used man-made substance in the world. I heard it said that if concrete was a country, it'd be the third largest CO2 emitter after China and the US. So what if we try to, like, move from that? That'd be great, you know. Move into hempcrete, you know, which sequesters carbon. You know, it's not structural, but there's ways now that have made it structural. So we need to evolve into you know, that for housing. So what we're doing at Winona's Hemp That's me. I'm Winona's Hemp. And you can look us up online. And then we have a group called Anishinaabe Agriculture. And you can look us up and, we do take donations. That's basically how we're working on it. But what we're doing is looking to transform the materials economy. I'm not, I like, legalization of cannabis is more than anything else, cannabis is an entirely new economy that could have justice in it. So from my perspective, I live in a community that has acres of land, which is in industrial agriculture leased out to white guy farmers with bad ideas. That's just a summary.
Yeah. And
all the tribes to the west of me, same thing. And if we bioremediated and grew fiber hemp, and then we built houses out of it, we made paper out of it, and I want to do textiles and fabric because the word canvas comes from cannabis. The word canvas comes from Canada. That's what I want to do. So we're trying to, when they killed the hemp economy with criminalization, it seems like they stole the body too. They killed it and then they stole it. So we don't even know, but Minnesota used to have 11 hemp mills.
Wow.
So what you need to do is support some folks like us, because what we need to do is we're going to build an intertribal hemp cooperative. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to have tribes in our region that we pass these seeds out to grow. And then we're going to buy equipment collectively and then figure out like who's processing hempcrete, who's making bag materials. That's what Sisseton wants to do. I want to do textiles. I got hemp pesto and I'm about to release hemp pasta. Go team, because how many hemp hearts can you eat? You can only drop so many hemp hearts on your salad, but if I can make hemp pasta. So I spent some time figuring out how to make pasta with the North Dakota State University. And, it's a whole plant approach, new green revolution, and then if you look at the cannabis industry, right now it's like 85% white guys, and this is an industry that I believe that, the criminalization of cannabis really disproportionately affected people of color. People in jail for a joint, for crying out loud.
Right.
And so the people who were punished should be part of this economy. They should own the dispensaries, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see. I'm a grower. I'm a grower. I can't grow anything with THC, but my pet tribe just passed medical. And so I'm looking to be a medical grower, for my tribe that help a lot of people. But that economy is a huge economy. And it should be something that people of color are in the seat at the center of, not on the periphery. So I think has huge potential, and so if you look to Winona's Hemp and, Winona's Hemp, that's good. And Anishinaabe Agriculture, you can follow our progress. And, what I'm trying to do is there's a couple different companies that say they can process it. I have a beautiful crop. I can decorticate it, but I have not yet figured out how to turn it into cottonized hemp. That's the trick. Because he could make, I can make rope now. So we'll see. Just pray with me. And if you got any good friends that, are hempsters, but there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there and I don't want to deal with them. I'm tired of them. I just want to grow hemp and make good things. Good. Thanks for putting up the Winona's Hemp. I appreciate that. And then someone asked me about the water ceremony. If you go online, there's this Ojibwe water song that, they are sharing. And it's very simple. It's basically based on Emoto's words. That guy from Japan, they translate that into Ojibwe and put it to song. And we could sing that. I'm going to go here to the Mississippi River when I'm done and pray, because Enbridge want to cross here and that's not going to happen. So I'm pray with my river.
Yeah. So, I was going to stay totally clear of politics. But if you had the opportunity, because you mentioned Justin Trudeau before, what would you want to say to our political leaders at this point?
You can't talk to Trump. Let's just forget that one, right? No bother at that one. But what I tell them is this is the time for leadership, if I was Justin Trudeau and I had a failing tar sands economy that has collapsed, and that was the source of like 80% of my value of my revenue, I wouldn't be trying to blow sales into that one or blow that one up. I'd be moving on, huge renewable energy potential. My advice to everybody is the same. Get renewable, get local, cut your consumption. We're wasting about 70% of our power between point of origin and point of consumption. Don't be dumb. Build the solutionary rail. Have you seen that proposal? Skip, solutionary rail. Like
Yeah.
you live in the Northeast, so you got a train system that kind of works. But by and large, America has a train system which would be like an embarrassment to Bulgaria.
Yeah,
This is like
exactly.
rebuild the infrastructure of this country in a way that makes sense. You know, a rail is like 80% more efficient than, you know, I think it's 65% more efficient than moving by diesel, you know, but build it electric, go electric, because then it's 85 or 90% efficient. So I would say be visionary, make the Green New Deal happen, and do a North American, they call it the LEAP manifesto in Canada. You know, let's be visionary and, you know, take care of our water and, you know, and making a good future, because that's their opportunity. Like in Minnesota, you know, I'm looking at Governor Walz, and he's a pretty decent guy, but you know, he's looking at a mining project and a pipeline, and those are dead end. Those are dead end. I said, grow some hemp, baby. The green revolution's here, you know, and our tribes are all putting up solar up north. I was like, why don't you just support the tribes? Because we know what to do. Y'all don't. Follow us, you know?
Well, you know, it's interesting when you talk about light rail. One of the things, because I love that concept, but one of the things that's going to have to change is, you know, the way that people live, their habits. You know, like when we used to live by rail, it was acceptable that you would, you know, take the train into town and you had the time to, you know, walk from the station to the store or whatever you were doing. And everybody has such an independent schedule now that the mind shift that it takes to be able to take advantage of, you know, what would be, you know, light rail public transportation, I think is part of one of the things that we have to address, is that we live so independently of consequence, you know, of the cost. And so understanding that if we made a decision to take public transportation, that has a positive impact, okay? And so we're more about living in the opportunity to have positive impact and really being willing to change the way that we live.
Well, we know time like the present, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we did all that cool stuff before. We used to fly, buddy.
Yeah,
Fly.
I know.
I don't know the things, you know, we don't want it to go back to normal because normal was dysfunctional.
Right.
You know, we want to make it better, and we're making it better now. You know, I mean, the thing is that, you know, in our own ways, I mean, people have rebuilt local food systems. You know, people are building food systems. My tribe is looking at how to rebuild, you know, how to build renewable energy systems that are on microgrids. Why is that? Because climate change raises hell with your energy infrastructure.
Yeah.
So smart cities will be building, you know, renewables. Smart cities will be getting efficient. You know, that's this, you know, I know what you're saying is that people got all that first world privilege. That's what that is first world privilege.
That's a good way. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it turns out that, you know, that's a fantasy, you know, because in the end, y'all drink the same water, we all breathe the same air, and, you know, you could be all first world and stuff, but, you know, it doesn't look like COVID is discriminating between, you know, the United States has more cases than anybody in the world, and we're all first world, right? You know, so, you know, I think that we need to, you know, just really, and I see someone that's putting this drawdown. That's exactly right. Like the drawdown book is like it's like a manifesto of cool people doing cool stuff. So acknowledge that we are the revolution and step up. You know, I mean, I was laughing at Biden acting like, you know, he was a pariah talking about the Green New Deal. And I was like, well, that's the least of it, guys, you know?
Exactly.
I'm just saying, hold your head proud. You guys, we've all been working on this, and now's the time to stand up and have the leadership, you know? You know, and the thing is that, you know, AOC is right. She's, you know, I was just looking at her post. She's just brilliant. These, you know, get some people in like her. Get some more, you know, new political leaders in there. But, you know, it's not just Trump. It's a whole establishment of dark money and dark politics and corporate ownership that my friend Ralph Nader's been talking about for 50 years. Then we need a challenge, you know? So, you know, and how you challenge that is you build a different economy. You know, like I said, I mean, things are different now, with the exception that Amazon, you know, jeepers, you know?
Yeah, well, Ralph has a good TED talk on now about how to make change happen. So it's a good connection point there. And, you know, just in the chat, somebody would like to know, is there a link to the water song somewhere that can...
You know, I'd have to find it, but if you look up Doreen Day, Ojibwe water song, Doreen Day, She's the one who sang it and put it up there. And she always says, well, just go sing it. You know, I mean, the point is go to your water and pray to your water. Pray to your water, because water is life and water has power.
Yeah.
You know, so let's be those people that, you know, not only just reconnect, you know, but also reaffirm relationship by prayer and song.
Yeah. One of the other things that I wanted to get a chance to ask you, it was about the 7 fire prophecies, and you know, where are we in that?
You know, it's so interesting talking to you about that, because I talked about this for years. And, you know, our people say that you got a choice between 2 paths. One is well-worn and scorched, and the other is green. And that's what happens at the time of the 7th fire. Well, we're taking the green path. You know, that's what we're going to do. And then they say that we will light the 8th fire of peace and reconciliation. So I'm like, oh, someone do light that fire. We're going to make that next world, you know. And, you know, I was thinking about it because when I was a young woman, I mean, I had a lot of privilege in my life. I listened to a lot of remarkable people talk, a lot of elders, and some of them came to see you. I don't know if Thomas Banyaka ever came to see you. Did you ever have Thomas Banyaka there?
No.
He was a Hopi elder. He passed away, but he was a friend of my father's, and he was a friend of, you know, I knew him. And he used to talk about how the new world, there's be signs. He said a gourd in the sky. That's what the Hopis talked about, of ashes in the sky. And then they talked about the web in the sky, and everybody thought that was Star Wars, but it was the internet.
Right.
You know,
the
world is changing. The world is changing. And you know, right.
A lot of questions that are coming in now are really about just as sort of an everyday person, what are the sort of the steps that one can do to help the cause, to show up now that, you know, there's such, you know, as we're talking, you can feel the energy that now is the time. So, you know, you know, a lot of inquiry around what do I do?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things to do in your own neck of the woods. You know, I would say that, and everybody knows that. There's like transformation that needs to be underway, you know, in each area, because it's crisis. It's crisis, you know. And so, like, for me, it was interesting because when I end up with all those kids at home, I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna run a survival school again. It's 40 years later. But, you know, what is relevant? I had a grandson studying the Byzantine Empire, you know, in the middle of COVID. I said, that seems rather irrelevant. You know, we could at least study the bubonic plague or something, you know, that, you know, I mean, come on, get real. It's this opportunity to be stuck with all your kids and teach them something relevant. You know, that's what I think of it. You know, look wherever it is, just, you know, start making sure that people know how to take care of things. Because my dad used to tell me there'd be a day when food would not be in the store. You know what? I've seen some of that already. You know, not just the dang toilet paper, but, you know, it's all like that. So, you know, don't act like you didn't hear this stuff. And then look at these big picture, you know, the election is something, but then, you know, fight them pipelines off. It's the end of their era, you know. And if you feel like coming to Minnesota, camping is beautiful, you know, and it's a beautiful place. And I tried for 7 years to not have to stand up to these guys, but, you know, we'll hope our court holds. But I'm preparing to make my stand because we're done. You know, we're done. And you got to, and the thing is that their stuff is so fragile. It is so fragile that, you know, just push, you know. I told Minnesota, you know, I told Enbridge, they said, what's it going to be like? I said, I don't know. I said, but if you look at your geography, we're halfway between Standing Rock and Minneapolis. We're done. You know, I mean, I just want to stand my ground in a peaceful way. But, you know, there's no absence of social movement understanding in the state of Minnesota, you know. So please, you know, support us at Honor the Earth. Support us at Honor the Earth. We're on the front lines. And, you know, so pick your battles in your own area and see if you can support us in our work, both to stop the bad guys, but also to make the next economy. Because, you know, that's the thing is that we're not just about we need to say where we're going. And if you're waiting for some politician to tell you where we're going, you're going to be waiting too long and it's not going to work out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and this is a thank you to the Omega team. Turns out that the Hopi elder Thomas Benyanka was here in 1983.
See?
See, and my memory, unfortunately, I can go back to about 1990. After that, forget it. You know, so but
When was he there?
1983.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew him ever since I was little, but I just want to say that, I knew he would be there because he would be the kind of person that you would say you want to bring.
Yeah, exactly. One last thing I'd like to talk about a little bit is one dish, one spoon.
Oh yeah, did you like that? Isn't that the greatest story?
I love that. To me, it was everything that tied up thinking about the commons, thinking about personal responsibility, thinking about relatives, thinking about balance.
Yeah, so a long time ago, 1706, one of my Oneida friends told me this story. In 1706, there was a treaty signed between the Six Nations, Iroquois, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe. And we signed this treaty because we both were massive nations and we had a common territory, and that common territory is the Ohio River Valley. And what we said is, don't be fighting there and take care of it. And so there's a treaty that was signed, and it's a wampum belt. And that's how we made our treaties, was with those wampum belts. And I know you all have heard of those wampum belts, but there's one called the One Dish, One Spoon Wampum or treaty. You can look it up in that sacred Wikipedia, right? Yeah. And what it is that our people said, let's we all eat from one dish. We all eat from one dish, and that's Mother Earth. And so we all must take care of that dish, so that was the teachings, the one dish. And then they said we all eat with one spoon. And why that's important is that one spoon was really the, in a ceremony. We just had a ceremony here, and it's interesting during COVID having ceremonies because you have to feed people, but now you change spoons, So we're all masked up, and I got to feed people with this different spoon, but we use one spoon, and that means your relatives. That's what that teaching is your relatives. Right. One dish, one spoon, and that is us. That is us, my sisters and brothers. We are all eating from one dish, and we are all using one spoon. Yeah. And so the teaching was to take care of the world that is, because it is ours. It is our responsibility. So I really like that, and I was glad I could have that story, in my book. There's a couple edits since you saw it. I was like, wow, those are things in there. So we had it was funny. I had to laugh because it's a lot of writing, and at a certain point I was like, oh, I know other people are like this when you're like in the 17th review of your footnotes, and you're like, oh. Yeah. I want to get a headache and cry.
What I can tell you is, I would make sure that you leave that one in, because I think that's the.
Oh yeah, no, it's there. It's there.
Yeah, because that to me is core principle. That is how we learn to be with each other. Is that level of respect. So, wow, the hour's gone. And, I want to thank you so much for your time, and make sure you stay healthy and safe. And I want to leave it with something that you said. Democracy is made by the hands of courageous people. So I leave you with that, and vote, everyone. Get out and vote. Exercise your civic responsibility. And Winona, I want to make sure it's not another 5 years, please.
Yeah, no, but thanks. Let us continue to have our dialogue, and really my prayers are with you all. Yeah. And let us work together to make a good future for our children, Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you for your time.